Hello everyone and welcome to another video in the English language series. So today we're going to be looking at how to write a grade 9 letter. Now, if you can remember our last video, we looked at how to write a grade 9 article. So these are all going to be options for your transactional writing section. So you could very well be asked to write a letter, which is why we're looking at what we're looking at today. So most letters are going to be formal. So this should mean that you use standard English only and no slang. The tone of your letter will depend on your purpose, and your purpose will depend on the question. So, some options for our purposes could be to be arguing, we could persuade, we could inform, we could describe, or we could entertain. And we can also do some of these all at once. So, for example, we could persuade and we could be informing at the same time. So, unlike an article, your audience is going to be very narrow. So, for a letter, the only person that's going to be reading it is who you're addressing it to. So, it could be most likely one person, or it could be a company that you're addressing. So, let's talk a bit about the structure of a letter first, okay? So, as we may know, we need addresses on letters. So, the writer's address, which is your address, is going to be at the top right, and the date should be written below. So with all addresses, you can make them up. So the address of the receiver, so who you're writing to, should be on the left below the writer's address, so below your address. Regarding who you're addressing, if you know the name of the person you are writing to, you write it down formally. However, if you don't know the name, you just put Dear Sir or Madam. After you address the receiver, you're going to have an indent at the beginning of your introduction paragraph, which is sort of like a large gap. Your introduction paragraph should be quite small, quite narrow, but it should set out why you are writing to the receiver and what you hope to achieve through the letter. Your paragraph should also be linked with connectives, and this is to ensure that your writing flows well and links your ideas together. You should sign off your letter with yours sincerely, a signature, and your formal name. Again, you can make this up. So if you are writing to someone whose name you don't know, you would sign off with yours faithfully. But if you're writing to someone that you do know, you would put yours sincerely. So the language in your letter is most likely going to be very formal. So you're going to have extensive vocabulary and a serious tone should be established. You should also use what we call persuasive techniques, like rhetorical questions and emotive language, and this is to persuade the reader to be on your side. We can use the forest to help us remember these persuasive techniques. So these are some examples: direct address, alliteration, facts, opinions, rhetorical questions, emotive language, facts and stats, and rules of three. Feel free to pause the video if you need to write some of these down or just make a few notes. Now we're going to get straight into analysing this grade 9 letter because there are so many good things about it and there's a lot that we can learn from it for our own writing. I want to give you a bit of context on what the letter's about so we're not kind of confused. So Sam Jones is a student who is desperate to make a change to his local area. He feels the play areas for children are poor and in need of improvement. He has written to his local MP, Sandra Smith, in the hope of persuading her to provide funds for new facilities. So this is the writer, and this is the receiver. So if you can already spot, he's writing to an MP, a member of parliament. So our letter is definitely going to be formal, and we're going to use standard English. Now, let's spot a few things about the structure that I went over with you guys just a minute ago. So this is the writer's address, and like I said, you make this up. It's on the top right, and the date that he's written the letter is underneath. This is the receiver's address. It's on the left, and it's underneath the writer's address. This is how you should lay out your addresses. It's going to give you a mark for structure if you get these things right. So it's very simple to kind of remember and get those right. Now, he knows the name of who he's writing to, so he says, Dear Mrs. Smith, because her name is Sandra Smith. Now, we're not going to read the whole thing, but you can, feel welcome to pause and read through it yourself. But I'm going to be showing you guys the main reason why this got a grade 9 and the kind of best things about it. Now, the structure of this letter is spot on. Like I said, the addresses and the date are spot on. They're in the right places. He addresses the receiver well. He has an indent here. And this introduction paragraph, he is saying what he's writing for and what he hopes to get out of it. He says there is an urgent issue that needs addressing. And although he doesn't give away the issue straight away, he does that in the next paragraph, which is very, very close. He also says, this letter concerns an issue that is very close to my heart. This is a simple sentence and it's also emotive language. And I would say there's also points for structure because he's getting into the topic of the letter very, very quickly. He's getting straight to the point, which is what you want to do. Now, he gives his reasons for why he wants the funds to create new play areas. He talks about the coronavirus, he talks about mental health, and he uses a lot of emotive language when he's talking about these things. And this is really, really good if he wants to persuade the reader, like I assume he's doing here. He also uses things like alliteration, a tremendous toll. He also uses very clear examples, which he probably has made up. He's probably made up Sutton Park, but it gives it a kind of realistic tone to it. And a part of the mark scheme is to make your piece of transactional writing indistinguishable to a real life piece of writing that is nonfiction. And he does this really well by using these examples. Another thing he uses here is humour. He says, to be honest, I think they were quite old when my parents played on them as kids. He's talking about the play areas and saying that his parents must have played on them when they were kids. This is humour here. But another thing that it's doing is making the MP probably feel a bit intimidated, maybe a bit kind of ridiculed, because she needs to do something about this because the play areas must be that old that his parents were playing on them when they were kids. So we can also say that he uses exaggeration here, which is also known as hyperbole. Another thing that he uses is imagery. And it's almost like an anecdote. He says, imagine how great it would be for children and teenagers if some money was allocated to these facilities so that we can head outside, enjoy the newest and best rides, sit and chat with our friends, enjoy fresh air, and have some social time which has been robbed off us for so long. So there's that imagery and that anecdote there. But there's also sympathy. He's saying they've been robbed off that for so long. So this is really hitting the MP's feelings. Well, that's what its intention is anyway. He also ends that with a rhetorical question, and this is to get the MP thinking, maybe debating in their head if it is worth spending the funds to create these new play areas. He ends his letter with talking about what has happened in recent years, the closures of youth centres and clubs. There's no more opportunity for people to go out their own homes and have this social time with each other. He says, I would like to be given the chance to talk to you in person about how my friends and I envision new facilities for people our own age and younger, and for you to give us a chance to have our voices heard. So this is very, very powerful. And he's using direct address here. So there's a lot of persuasive techniques which are working very well. He ends the letter by saying, thank you for taking the time to read this letter, and I look forward to your response. Now, this is a very polite thing to do. This is a good thing to do in a formal letter. It's showing the reader that you're not just there complaining or trying to get them on your side. You really respect the time that they've taken to read this letter, and you hope for them to do something about the issue that you're raising. He says yours sincerely and gives his full name, which again is 4 marks for the way that he structures this. So we can see that the main kind of success for writing a letter is to engage who you're speaking to. And we've looked at the different ways that we can do this through the persuasive techniques, through his structure, through his use of language, through his paragraphs, the way that he kind of sets out a different topic in each of the paragraphs. This is a very, very successful letter. And feel free to use this for your revision or your independent work when you're revising transactional writing. So I hope this has been helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.